And as I walked in the door, they were already on the television that he had been shot. So I asked if I could use the phone. I knew if anyone knew anything, it would be just kill them in Austin because they carried all three networks. So I called Jess and I said, what is going on? First I called Lou Sterrett at downtown and I said, my God, what has happened, Lou? And here are people that should have been out at the trademark for the luncheon, but they were still downtown. And he said, well, they just shot that SOB. And maybe Lyndon. Well, when Lou told me it was Lyndon, of course it was very upsetting. And I didn't live all that far from the where I had my hair fixed. Jess from my house. I said, Jess, what is going on? And he told me at that time. He even said that he was sure he had passed away. Or
I released these studies because I felt that the concealment of this information for 25 years has now led to the death of 50,000 Americans and several 100,000 Vietnamese in the last few years.
We felt so strongly that we were dealing with a national security crisis. Henry Kissinger said that Dr. Daniel Ellsberg was the most dangerous man in America and he had to be stopped.
Walled off by a mob of newsmen and supporters as he admitted that he was indeed the man who brought the Pentagon Papers to the press and congressional leaders.
I can no longer cooperate in concealing this information from the American public.
Dr. Ellsberg, you have any concern about the possibility of going to prison for this? We have a quick plan.
Wouldn't you go to prison to help end this war?
So why don't you ask the doctor what is it he's giving you? The reason I'm telling you this is because only you have the power to stop these criminals with what they're doing in the pharma industry. Because you are not sick people. You are consumers. You are consumers. And the pharma industry makes money because they tell everybody that you are sick. Now, you can ask me the question, why have you been doing this then? There are several reasons, and I'm not making any excuses. I was a bad boy.
Several dozen people. My job was to get them and for me to convince these countries to accept these very large loans, to get the banks to make the loans, to set up the deal so that the money went to big U.S. corporations. The country was left holding a huge debt, and then I would go in, or one of my people would go in and say, look, you know, you owe us all this money, you can't pay your debts, give us that pound of flesh. The other thing we do, Amy, and what's going on right now in Latin America, is that as soon as one of these anti-American presidents is elected, such as Evo Morales, who you mentioned in Bolivia, one of us goes in and says, hey, congratulations, Mr. President. Now that you're president, I just want to tell you that I can make you very, very rich, you and your family. Get several $100 million in this pocket if you play the game our way. If you decide not to, over in this pocket I've got a gun with a bullet with your name on it in case you decide to keep your campaign promises and throw us out.
We'll explain actually how that plays out, because it's not really in this pocket.
No, it's what I'm saying is that, you know, I can make sure that this man makes a great deal of money, he and his family, through contracts, through various quasi-legal means. And I can also, if he doesn't accept this, you know, the same thing's going to happen to him that happened to Jaime Roldos in Ecuador, and Omar Torrijos in Panama, and Allende in Chile, and we tried to do it to Chavez in Venezuela, and are still trying, that we will send in the people to try to overthrow him, as in fact we recently did with the president of Ecuador, or if we don't overthrow him, we will assassinate him. And these people all know the history. They know that this has happened many, many, many times in the past.
Explain.
Well, it's a phrase that comes, I think, from an old naval tradition, where sailing boats would go in under one flag of a different country to deceive the enemy and get close and then attack them. But false flag is basically the concept where an attack happens, some sort of terrorist atrocity, which is blamed on one party, but is actually planned, organised or paid for by another party, quite often an intelligence agency. And it's a perfectly standard weapon in the arsenal of intelligence agencies. They use false flag all the time. So people really shouldn't be shocked by the idea that this can occur. The case that made Shayla and I actually quit MI5 was a very stark case of false flag terrorism. And as I said, he was the head of the Libyan section in 1995, and he developed unusually friendly relations with his counterpart in MI6, which is the external service. And he was briefed by his counterpart on an unfolding plot where there had been a volunteer from the Libyan Military Intelligence Agency who had said he would like to try and stage a coup in Libya, but he needed support from MI6. Financial support in order to carry out this coup attempt. And if he did succeed with MI6's backing, then he would hand over the Lockerbie 2 suspects, who were still wanted at that point. And of course it would smooth the path to greater business contracts, particularly in the oil fields with British Petroleum. So MI6 leapt at this, and they started funding what was effectively an Al-Qaeda cell in Libya to try and assassinate Colonel Gaddafi in 1996. And they threw about $120,000 at this group for them to buy the equipment to carry out the coup, explosives, guns, jeep stents, whatever.